Coming up on this edition of Rev Culture, Ray Evernham has lots of stories to tell. Thanks for joining me on this edition of Rev Culture. I'm Todd Lewis. First up, it's a little two-wheel talk with Trackhouse Racing MotoGP racer Miguel Oliveira. But first up, he was Jeff Gordon's crew chief when he was winning races and championships. He returned the Dodge brand to NASCAR, and today he's trying to revitalize the IROC brand. In his new book, Trophies and Scars, Ray Evernham tells his story through motorsport and his life. First thing I notice about the book, Ray, you're very open, you're very honest about sharing details and stories. Not all of them are very flattering for you. I admire the courage, first of all, to open up and be so personal. Was that difficult for you?
Yeah, it was difficult to do it, but it wasn't, I had made up my mind if I was going to write the book, and the book is really about being able to help people and wanting people to know who I truly am and what I was going through and what I was thinking at that time and how it helped me evolve into who I am today, which I hope I'm in a better place than I was then had to be honest, and when you're, when you're putting it out there, when you're writing a book and you're doing the promotion of that book, you're reaching out as many people and you're saying, hey, look, back then, this is what I was thinking, and here are the things that I did great, rah, rah for me, but here are also the things I wish I would have done differently. And that's why we call it Trophies and Scars, because, there's cool things I did that won, and there's things that I did that left me with some scars, but I still learned from them, and they were equally as important as any of the trophies that I have.
You also mentioned that you want people to know what you were thinking and how you were feeling, those important people in your life. What's the reaction been? What's the feedback been so far?
Nobody's shot at me or said, hey, that was just a terrible book. We've got a lot of good feedback from it. I'm waiting to hear, as more of the family and friends read it. Certainly some of my friends have said, I've known you for a long time, but I didn't know that, or you hid that well, or didn't understand at the time. Jeff Gordon and I sat and had a long conversation, because sometimes what you think is happening, it wasn't really happening. And we both had to go, wow, I didn't know that, or I didn't know that. And I'm sure that, I want my children to read that. And my son went through a lot of it with us. But my daughter didn't, and I want her to know, what was going on and all the things that I missed with family, or that you don't get to spend time with your family explaining. They're not really living it with you, right? They're watching it, and they're watching it like everybody else, but they don't really know because you don't even have time to talk to them or friends. So I want the people who I'm close to understand what I was going through. And I want all the people who helped me through the years. I wanted them to feel like they took that ride with me, because, I wanted to know all the way back to when we talked about the man who helped me at the baseball game, or my father's friend, Jack Stoddard, or Jay Signori and Mr. Penske and everything. I wanted all those people to know that they inspired me to move forward.
You outline a lot of those moments throughout the book on your path. There were a few major turning points in your career moving forward, going back as far as when you were driving, you were injured, you and another competitor suffered burns, but you both came back to race for a championship after that.
Yeah, we did. Kind of funny, but we were always, it's not that we didn't like each other, but we just got in different positions, and truthfully, the gentleman you're talking about, his name's Tony Siscone, great racer, probably one of the greatest pavement modified racers to ever come out of New Jersey. But, I was jealous of him, young, good looking guy, best ride, beat me every week. And it's real easy to be jealous about people and think that they've got it made. And when we had that wreck and he was horribly injured, then I started to realize, watching how hard he had to work just to be able to race, right? just to be able to get there to the racetrack and compete. What he was going through with his family, 2 young kids, his life. And, those are the things that inspired me to think, you know what, I've been making excuses. That guy's beaten me, and he is who he is because he wants it bad, and in the book, I talk about that night that I watched his wife had to unbuckle his helmet for him because his gloves, he had compression gloves on and whatnot. And we'd run just a 35 lapper at Wall Stadium, probably both driven our butts off. I don't even think we won, and I watched her take his helmet off, and he took off his gloves, and his hands were bleeding. There was blood coming through the compression gloves. And right then and there, I was like, I need to stop making excuses for why I'm not winning, for why because there it is right in front of me. This guy wants it worse. He's suffering to do it, and when you all of a sudden have a realization like that, or for a minute think that, man, what if it got taken away from me? Do I love this enough to make the commitment? And I really started to think about things in a different way. And that led me to look at going to be surrounded by other people that were like him, like champions. And when the IROC opportunity came up, it was perfect. It was perfect timing.
You recount your first meeting with Roger Penske in the book too. It's a great story, and it was a significant moment.
Yeah, and Mr. Penske still is somebody I look up to so much, and he is how he does what he does. I don't even know, but yeah, I was a kid. When I say kid, I was probably 23, 24 years old, and long hair and beard, the whole deal. It was the '80s, right? And RP comes in there, beautiful red slant nose Porsche, and just perfect, suit, just perfect like RP always is. And when he came out, he well, first he asked me what I was doing, and I said, well, I'm breaking up this ice. We've got to get this truck out of here. There's a delivery coming, and I think he was like, man, there's a guy out here thinking ahead, busting the ice. So he went in and saw Jay and Barbara and whoever. And when he came out, he's like, oh. And so the toll booth for the Garden State Parkway was right there, and I think it was a quarter to get on there. And he's like, have you got any change? You got a quarter? So I give him the quarter because he didn't have any change. And, it's just in those days, it was miserable to go up there with a $10 bill or whatever, and so I gave him the quarter, and we honored him at the Amelia Island Concours a few years ago. And I said, yeah, back in 1983, I lent Roger a quarter. He never paid me back. And I said, with interest and everything right now, and that's probably worth $5, but it's still the best investment that I ever made. And we had a good laugh about that.
It's a great story, one of many throughout the book, Trophies and Scars. Jumping ahead a little bit, you get the opportunity to be the crew chief for the 24 car with Jeff Gordon. It's a bold step. You've never been a crew chief before. Tell me about the thoughts, the doubts, the concerns that you had in accepting this job in this role.
Well, I really wanted to be with Jeff, but I was not ready to be a Cup crew chief. And that's where, Rick Hendrick he's an amazing guy about seeing potential in people. And even though I told him, I said, I don't really want to be the crew chief. You guys should hire an experienced crew chief. And he's like, no, Jeff wants you to be the crew chief. And I was like, Mr. Hendrick, I'm the car builder, setup guy, I can team manager. I'm good with the books and the details because I had learned so much at Penske from Jay Signori, but I knew nothing about being a Cup crew chief. And he said, well, we want you to be the crew chief. I said, I just don't want to be the crew chief. He said, Ray, that's the only job we have. Take it or leave it. and he said, we will help you. Randy Dorton will build your motors, and we'll help you with the cars. And the other crew chiefs, he said, I will support you. And his support gave me the confidence to go ahead and try and do it. And I had to learn a lot in a short period of time.
It's a challenge that you took on and devoured, and you went and expanded the role into a lot of areas. What's commonplace to now with NASCAR teams, with fitness, athleticism, and specialization, that was all new as you were bringing it into the sport. Did you see yourself as being an innovator or just a guy who was looking for an edge?
Exactly. The guy looking for the edge, and the fact that we came in and we had a clean sheet of paper. And what was good about Jeff and I coming in back then is we didn't know how much we didn't know. Sometimes when you get in a situation where you are at the top of the game and you're afraid to change. And then it was perfect timing for us because a lot of things were changing in NASCAR. The radial tire was coming in, the owner serviceable shock absorbers and more aerodynamics and lighter weight materials. All those things were coming in, and we weren't afraid to try it because Jeff being a sprint car guy and me being a modified guy, that was that was the way things were, light, low, and left, right? And the fact that Rick Hendrick had enough confidence in us to let us try things that were pretty unorthodox back then. When I remember saying, "Hey, look, I don't want my mechanical guys to be on, to be doing the pit crew." And they're like, "Oh, well, the mechanics all want to have the pit crew." I remember Rick and I kid about this. I said, I went to pit practice and watched one of the other teams pit practice, and the front tire changer goes over the wall smoking a cigarette wearing cowboy boots, and I'm like, wait a minute, So we got the idea that if we were going to work the mechanics 12, 14, 16 hours a day, they wouldn't have time to pit practice. And I watched video after video after video, studied pit road, and realized how much time could be gained or lost. And at that time, people were tinkering with different guys, getting everybody in shape. Alan Kowicki was one of the guys that were started. I always tell everybody, I didn't revolutionize anything. I took an idea that the Petties and the Wood brothers had. They knew how important pit stops were, and we just went to the next step and improved it. And it took the support of Mr. Hendrick because he had to slide the budget over to have extra people on the team. And he had to support me in doing something that was very unorthodox at that time. And when we proved to him how it would work, he really got behind it. And now, the pit department at Hendrick Motorsports, bar none, finest in the, in all of American motorsports.
Mid to late 90s, you guys were on top of the world, 3 championships. You won 13 races in 1998. I'm not sure we'll ever see that kind of a run again. Does it make you proud to have had that level of success through that period of time?
It absolutely does, and it gives some validation to the things that we did. Did not really take the time to think about that stuff back then, enjoy it. We kind of shoveled that stuff off and said, hey, we'll talk about that when we're done. But now when I look back at it, really proud to have been part of that Rainbow Warriors team. That 24 team, I don't think everyone really knows how great they were together. That was one of those, the whole was actually greater than the sum of the parts, as they say. Their group IQ was massive compared to individual, what they were individually. And that team truly worked as a team, right? They worked unselfishly for the goal of our team and Rick Hendrick and Hendrick Motorsports. And I don't think we realized how special it was back then. And again, when I look at that and how that number 24 team back then really helped build the culture that is at Hendrick Motorsports now, it really makes me proud.
You were having lots of on-track success, but eventually not everything was running so smoothly in the background. There was conflict. And this often happens at elite levels of sports. Sometimes you can settle that and calm it down. Other times the band breaks up. And I guess that's what happened with you guys.
Yeah. A lot happened to us in a short period of time. And, it was really about, Jeff and I were close together. And, the truth is, whether it's a rock band or great teams, Pat Riley, who we used his book, The Winner Within, to build our team. There's a section in there called The Disease of Me and all these things that help that unwind the team. And we weren't ready for that. We weren't ready for all that success. Some people got in between myself and Jeff. Our communication started to pull down. I think a little bit of our trust and belief in one another, and everybody started throwing money at you, and with it was always about working with Jeff that was special to me. And when I saw that that may be coming to an end, even though Jeff didn't know I felt that way, it's really funny. I would go back now and think, God, that would have been easy to fix all this, right? And again, there were some people pulling him in a different direction, me in a different direction. And Dodge came in with the opportunity of a lifetime for me, because at that time we had won everything you could win in NASCAR, some of it 2 and 3, 4 times, right? And all of a sudden you get this opportunity with a car company who wants you to take and build a car from scratch, help finish this motor, and bring them back into the sport. And they're, you're the guy, you're going to be the team leader with these great names like, Richard Petty, Chip Ganassi, Bill Davis, amazing stuff. And I just felt like it was time for me to expand again. And if you don't sometimes take chances, if you don't evolve, then I don't think that you are truly fully living life and being all that you can be. So just like I had to take that job as a crew chief when I was scared to death and I wasn't ready for it, I did the same thing with Dodge. I thought, whoa, this is one of those deals when you bite off more than you can chew, you just got to chew faster.
You sort of, maybe I'll describe it as this, as you were kind of building the plane as you were flying it.
Well, I said, I use something in the book when I say that, look, it's always been my deal. Sometimes you can't worry about stuff and you jump out of the plane and build the parachute on the way down, and be confident that you're going to get it done before you hit the ground.
Similar sort of thing. But the Dodge thing was one of many opportunities that have presented themselves to you in the subsequent years. You went on, you had success there, you won races, you did television commentary, you've done your own shows on television. And now I want to jump ahead to IROC, and well, that was an important name at the start of your career. Is it kind of coming full circle as you acquire the use of the brand name once again?
That is for me, and you're right. I mean, I've been really blessed. I tell people, they say, "Man, Ray's buttoned up. He's had this plan and he's worked this plan," and it's not that way. It's not that way. It's more than when opportunities come up and you've got to change and you got to be ready to take care of them, and you use whatever skills that you have to make it work. I 100% believe I'm like the Forrest Gump of motorsports, right? I get into these situations and sometimes I've got to pinch myself or ask like, oh my God, how do I get here? But then you got to suck it up and do it. When I did the TV, I had a blast at ESPN. I mean, a blast. I loved doing TV. I hated it when that wound down, and hopefully we can kick that off again. Loved it. And then did some car shows, and we started the SRX series, and I wrote the series and did the cars and did all that. And, it didn't work out the way I wanted it business wise and whatnot, but still huge, for me to see that proof of concept that fans still want some racing and some motorsports entertainment. And the opportunity came up to buy the IROC brands back with my partner, Rob Kaufman, who Rob's a racer, vintage race guy, loves history. And so we're going to try and put some IROC reunions and get some IROC cars back on track. And who knows where it's going to go. But to answer your original question, yeah, like for me to sit here again after 40 years, and have another IROC patch on, it's pretty cool.
I know everybody's going to want me to ask, so I will. You've talked about reunions and getting cars back on track and acquiring these cars that have fallen away and into disrepair. Is there a chance that we see IROC 2.0 at some point with competition of current drivers, maybe some recently retired drivers?
That would be the plan, but we want to make sure that we stay in our lane and make it work really well for the NASCARs, the Indy cars, the IMSA, and work with the other. And so it takes a lot of cooperation between the sanctioning bodies and the car owners to do that. We'd love to do it. IROC 2.0 may be maybe a little something even more enjoyable than that. And there may be different classes of it where we run the Porsches or we run the Camaros or we run the Dodge Daytonas or Firebirds or whatever. Whereas maybe it's a combination of the vintage cars putting on a race when we run a real race with a newer style car. Hey, maybe a bunch of Porsche GT4 Club Sports running around. That would be awesome, I think, if anybody Porsche is watching. But right now we're trying to still gather as many original IROC cars as we can. And I've located about 38 different cars so far. Not all of them are running, or some are in the UK. There's two of them up there in Canada. I've got to try and figure out how to get a hold of those. But the neat thing is that the IROC brand still means a lot to motorsports people. It's recognizable, and people are excited about it. And I think if the people are excited about it, who knows where we can go with it.
Is there anything else that Ray Evernham has on the horizon?
Oh, wow. Again, going back to that Forrest Gump deal, it just depends. If you see it, I'd love to be able to continue to be a positive influence on motorsports, whether that's NASCAR, IndyCar in some particular way. I'd love to continue to do more TV. I'm working closely with the people at SMI, particularly Marcus Smith. He and I have become friends, and he wants to build a huge event on the East Coast, much like the Car Week in Monterey and Pebble, and bring something like that to the North Carolina area. So we had a very, very successful show for kicking off things like that just this past weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So that's really my next big project, trying to see if I can help Marcus make his dream a reality.
Ray Evernham is our guest. The book is Trophies and Scars. Thanks so much for the time. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see what's next for Ray Evernham.
Oh, thank you very much, and appreciate your time. And if you bump into those IROC cars up there, please give me a call.
Super excited to be joined by Miguel Oliveira, MotoGP racer from Trackhouse Racing. Miguel, before we get into this year, I want to go back to last year. 2023 was a really tough year for you. Injuries, a difficult season. Take me through the recovery and training just to get ready for this year.
Yeah, was a hard time. I had to deal with some injuries, some of them tougher than the others, but yeah, had a shoulder recovery that was rushed into 5 weeks, avoiding a surgery. So as you can imagine, was not easy. Yeah, and then technical problems, end of the season with another injury, got a surgery after that. So it was a long winter. Mentally was a very long winter. Couldn't wait to get back on the bike and shake off a little bit the feelings of the last year.
It must make you super hungry for a victory this year.
Well, it does motivate you a lot to just try and do better. Many of the things which happened last year was not really in my control. And that also kind of frustrates you a little bit more because you have all the control in the world just until a certain point, and everything else is not really up to you. But that makes me really hungry, to go and approach the competition in a more aggressive way.
Trackhouse itself is new to the MotoGP world. How has it been being part of this group?
Yeah, I mean, we had at least I speak for myself, but we had the first real taste of feeling the Trackhouse experience and feeling a part of something bigger than the MotoGP family when we went and visit this week, Tuesday in Charlotte, the Trackhouse facilities, and that really made us aware of of the bigger picture, let's say, and yeah, we really enjoyed that. Personally, it was a very, very nice experience to get to know a little bit better the insides of NASCAR and the technical difficulties and whatever. So yeah, it feels good.
We know the logic of pairing a young racer like your teammate Raul with a veteran such as yourself. He can learn from you and gain experience. Does it work the other way too? Are there things that you learn from him from a younger racer's approach?
Yeah, I think for sure, I think experience can give you the mindset of dealing with certain situations, not only on track but also off track a little bit better. Uh, but it's a learning process for every rider. You know, you cannot come here expecting just because you're experienced that you will not be outbeaten by your teammate because he's younger or whatever. You know, you really need to be on your toes every single practice, to be open-minded, to try new things and try different approaches and adapt better to the bike, adapt better to some kind of style to one corner that you're not doing particularly right. So yeah, it works both ways, I would say.
And that will do it for this edition of Rev Culture. Don't forget, you can catch up on past episodes by going to the Rev TV website, and please make sure you follow us on all our social channels. Thanks for watching. See you next time.